family, all of you for showing up this afternoon.
Excuse me, the plane?
Yes. Again, on behalf of the Berry family, I want to thank you all for showing up. My name's Steve Carlson. I'm one of the lawyers working with the Berry family along with Randy Johnson and Rondi Eagle. No one should have to endure the pain of watching a loved one unnecessarily and unlawfully be shot right before their eyes. And that's what happened here. Imagine what this family's going through. They sat right here in front of the house talking to their son, their brother, and realized that there were some mental issues. And they called the LA Sheriff's Department for help. The Sheriff's Department came out, and within 5 minutes of that call for help, the people they called shot and killed John Berry. Imagine what that would be like. And so we asked that John Berry was just put to rest on Friday, 3 days ago, so we ask that you respect the family. They're still grieving, and it's just really hard for them to get through. Why are we here? We're here because the Berry family and a lot of the neighbors that watched this incident happen right in front of this house are outraged at the Los Angeles Sheriff Department's response and explanation of what happened here. And we want our story to get out. And there's a video that we'd like to show that we believe supports the Berry's position and is contrary to a lot of the things that the LA Sheriff's Department put out. Right after the shooting, we believe the Sheriff's Department realized that there was a problem. They shot an unarmed man who was doing absolutely nothing wrong in front of his house, and they probably shot him. We don't know. The ammunition that they unloaded was probably 25 to 40 bullets. We haven't got the autopsy reports. We're not sure how many struck him, but they had a problem, and we believe they used the LA Sheriff's spokesperson while John Berry's body was still sitting in the car in front of the house. They came down the street and got in front of the public, got in front of some of you here that I saw your reports, and tried to say, justify what they did. And I'll tell you what we're outraged about. One is the spokesperson classified John Berry as a suspect. And that may not seem like a lot, but what he's implying is that there's some kind of wrongful activity that he's involved in, that he's somehow dangerous, and that's not true. He's the victim in this case, and we want that to be known. He was doing nothing wrong. You can ask anybody in this neighborhood. He grew up here. He's lived here since he was born. He's never been dangerous. He's never been arrested. He's never done anything wrong. So the family wants everyone to realize that. Why did they classify him as a suspect? Because they want the public to believe that, yes, the shooting of this man must have been benefit for the society, that he must have been a threat of some kind. They went on further to misrepresent what happened by saying when the first officer arrived coming down the street that somehow he drove his vehicle in their direction and collided with that vehicle. That's absolutely false. And we want you to know that. Why would they do that? They want to make it look like, again, John Berry's some kind of aggressive person. They've got a problem on their hands. And this video that you'll see, we want you to look at it, and you'll see the position of the vehicles, and you'll realize the only person driving in anyone's direction of another vehicle is the police car. He cut in front of John Berry. John Berry's driving away. Done nothing wrong. They have absolutely no reason or right to pull him over or stop him. He's done nothing wrong. They cut him off. They stopped him. There's a picture, if you don't mind getting it out, and it's going to be on this disc you'll see, the front of the vehicle. They call it a collision. Look at the front of John Berry's BMW that he just got and he's so proud of. There's not a dent on it. There was no collision in this case. Again, misclassifying the situation. Then he goes on to say during the fight that the officers used different levels of force to try and explain what happened. Watch this video. There is absolutely no fight involved. Mr. Berry held onto that steering wheel. All he kept asking is, what did I do wrong? I didn't do anything wrong. So to classify as this is some type of fight, again, trying to justify their actions and this escalation that they provoked is absolutely wrong. Then, in order to justify the shooting, they talked about one of the deputies' legs being crushed. In the video, you'll see the deputy they're talking about walking around. There's nothing wrong with his legs, and you don't see him touching his legs or any limp in his walk. Again, all trying to justify the officer's actions. So that's what we wanted to say. Why did this happen? It was because he's not a suspect. John Barry's brother is a licensed police officer. He's off duty. He was out here talking to him. He called the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, the Lakewood station, not a 911 call. He called the non-emergency line. He said, I'm an off-duty, he knows what to say, tell them, to make sure they know what's going on. Off-duty police officer, my brother's in front. I want him to see if I can get a medical examination. I think he's off his medicine. Maybe you can send someone out to evaluate him. That is not an emergency call. There's no threats of violence. There's no force. So that's what he told them. They come out, and they told him, we can't send a medical evaluation team out. First, the officers have to come out, assess the situation, and determine whether or not a medical person could come out. Well, that assessment never happened, and the way they came out was completely contrary to all the experts and how you handle mental illness calls. This situation happened because the police officers didn't handle it properly. We have witnesses, and the tape starts on the video about a minute to a little bit more than a minute after the officers arrived. But what you'll hear, and there's witnesses, Mr. Barry and the mom is sitting right out here when the officers rolled up. The officer got out, didn't ask what's going on. Mr. Barry, or the brother, says, look, I'm an off-duty police officer, he's my brother, get back. Gets out and starts yelling at Mr. Barry and demanding and threatening him to get out of the car. And all Mr. Barry kept saying is, why? What did I do wrong? What happens next is within 30 to 60 seconds, they're already pepper spraying John Barry. This was not the way you handle a mental illness call. And from there, they just escalated the violence. It's an absolute fact. And the policies are shown that when you deal with someone with a non-emergency situation, you don't yell, you don't threaten, you don't want to escalate the violence. Again, here's a copy, and this would be on the disc for the front of that vehicle. There's no collision that happened in this case. There was no violent altercation before they got out of the car. They got out and just immediately started the use of force. The mom, the brother, and another sister all watched this unfold right in front of their eyes. So, and there's even worse. It's either they were mishandled the situation, they weren't properly trained. We're still trying to find out what they're trained to do in non-emergency mental illness calls. And third, there was actually a supervisor on the scene. You'll see him walking around, and this scene was not supervised. You'll see, and you'll tell that the officers weren't worried about John Barry. Both doors are open. You'll see the officers going in the passenger door at some points, the driver door, they're pulling on him. They're inside the car. They know there's no weapons involved, but they're not worried. You'll see them, they even turn their back and walk around sometimes not even looking at John Barry. So to say that he's somehow a threat to them is ridiculous. So the supervisor should have been there. There's no control. You can tell by watching it's confused. You'll hear one of them say, I can't get the keys, or I can't tase him, or something like that. So there's just no one supervising this whole situation to let it and just keep getting out of control. You can tell as you watch it progress that this is going to be a disaster by the time it ends, and it does. You'll see that by the time that the vehicle backs up, the officers shoot. We think, if you see the front of the vehicle, and you'll have photographs, there's at least 24 bullets that go through the front windshield. There's also, you'll see an officer shooting from the driver's side. That there must have been 40 excessive use of force. They had this man trapped, and when you look at the video, look at the vehicles, how they're placed. He had nowhere to go. They didn't have to rush him and threaten him and make it end like this. But like I said, the policies that were carried out in this were just tragic. The Barry family, what do they want? What we want everyone to know is we want this never to happen again. If you talk to the mom and the brother and sister, this is something no one should ever have to go through. You should never have to witness your son or brother being shot right in front of you, who knows how many times. So we're asking that, and Sheriff McDonald is on record. You can go on record and see. He knows, and he stated that there is I think he called it the percentage of time that use of force is used against the mentally ill is out of proportion with any other, even violent criminals. So he knows there's a problem. He says the use of force, I think it's 40% of the department's use of force is when they're dealing with people with mental illness. That's wrong. That needs to be addressed. Obviously, that's exactly what's wrong here. The family's hoping that this will never happen again. There'll be a change in the department, the sheriff's department, to make sure that when dealing in a non-emergency situation, that changes are made where this doesn't happen. They don't just come in and treat them like a criminal. So that's why we're here. John's gone. Johnny's gone. They'll never. They know that. They know they're not going to bring him back, but they're hoping that maybe his death will make some good, especially in this community where, like I said, his brother was a police officer. They respect police officers, but that's why they called him. They expected a much better situation to unfold and help as they wanted. So they'll never forget. Believe me, the nightmares of watching someone get shot is never going to leave them. They're going to live with it the rest of their life. So that's what they're hoping, is that some good will come out of this. I'm going to stop now. I'm going to, like I said, on the disk drive, the flash drives we're going to give you, we got a video. Thank God a neighbor who saw the whole thing from actually when they pulled up, who knows that there was no collision, there was no driving at the officers, who knows there was no, that the officer got right out and basically started threatening, and the force started right from the time he got out of the car. I don't want to give you, I'm not allowed, she told me not to give you her name. You'll hear her voice in there and her telling him to stop beating him, and she's very verbal about how upset she was with the situation. I'm not at liberty. If you give me your names, and I think we have some of them, I've told her I'll get your names and numbers, and if she wants to call you, I'll have her call you. But that's on the video. Some pictures of the vehicle to show you how the excessive and over reaction. I think it was contagious fire. Once one guy shot, they all just started unloading their whole guns. Also is a couple pictures of Johnny and our claim that we filed against the LA Sheriff's Department. And you can read our claims that are being done. That was presented last Friday afternoon. So I'm going to stop now. If you have any questions, I'd ask that you just come and talk to the family, but be respectful. I appreciate it. If you have any questions of me, I'm here to ask any questions or answer any.
Can someone explain why? Because I think the average person at home is going to wonder why you would call the sheriff's department if you're concerned about a family member mental state.
Yes.
Why call law enforcement?
Chris Berry, the brother, is a licensed police officer. He knows that the sheriff's department has a medical evaluation unit. He knows that they have resources and supposed to have ways to deal in the situation. So that's why. I mean, there are.
Yeah. It's still a bit confusing though, because when I'm sure the average person is going to think you call the police when there's an issue, there's a problem, something that needs handling. Why not take him to a medical facility?
They were saying, come on in the house and get some rest. He said, no, get in my car and go for a ride. That's what the call was for. There was no confusion with the police department, as this was just for help, for medical help. In fact, I don't want to go too far into the story, but his first call, again, remember, non-emergency calls, was to the Lakewood Sheriff's Station desk. He said, can you give me the mental health hotline? He then calls, so they give him a number. So this wasn't directly call for the police, come help. They give him the line, he calls that number and gets a voice message. He leaves a voice message saying who he is, he's an officer, and goes through all that. Then he calls back to the station again, non-emergency, and goes through it again. So he tried different avenues, and then he went again back to the Lakewood Sheriff's Department and said, please send out a medical evaluation team. So there were other avenues he tried first, but this is also one that I think the Sheriff's Department, that's why they have these people on.
But the concern was that he was not coming into the house, and the family wanted him into the house?
Correct. He'd been gone for a couple days, and he's driving fine. He drove back to the house, so then he shows up. They're saying, Johnny, come on in the house, get some sleep, and get some rest. And he's like, no, I think I'm going to, get in the car, let's just go for a ride. He's joking with him. It's not like he was being, too outlandish.
You
But
said he'd been gone for several days. So
correct.
Was he not in contact with the family?
Oh, he's in
Concerned
contact
about
on the
his
phone.
well-being?
He was on the phone with them throughout that time, and they kept telling him, come home, and then he did come home. And so that's why they wanted to make sure he didn't go, and that's why they called the police.
With respect, can you say what condition Mr. Berry had and what medication he had been prescribed?
I don't know the medication. I apologize. I believe it was schizophrenia. It was diagnosed about 2 years prior to this. And as far as I know, there was only one incident where he had an episode that required hospitalization.
Had he stopped taking his medication?
That's what the call. They said, I think, in the call, and we haven't got the transcripts yet, but the calls were, we think he's off his meds.
But I mean, in the previous incident.
He wasn't on meds. That's when they first were diagnosed as he might have a mental condition. So it wasn't like a long time disability that he had.
So how long had he been?
2 years.
2 years in terms of medication.
The family's not really sure about the medication. I don't know. Maybe they can answer that after, but I'm not sure. But I know he wasn't diagnosed until 2 years. All right?
It might be easier for the family not to have to repeat this 5 times or 6 times. Would someone like to come up and just talk once to all of us so that we don't all bombard you?
This is Susan Berry. This is the mom.
Did you have a question? Well, just start with why are you filing this? What do you hope will come out of this?
Well, I'm hoping definitely there'll be change for the better for all people everywhere. I see it that no one should be treated that way, whether they have mental problems or not. I think that everybody, needs to be respected and treated with dignity. And we were not even respected as his family that day. We were shouted back. And even at the sheriff's station, we were not allowed to give what we had seen, which shocked me that they didn't want to hear what I had just witnessed. It was just all very shocking, very, very shocking and disheartening. I have lived here at this house for over 40 years, and I've raised my children and many other people's children, and I have always believed in treating people with kindness and fairness. There was no counseling at all when these people came out, and I was told by a little girl that came to pick me up in a van that I said, was there a medical team available? And she said they were unavailable today. So that's a tragedy. That it was a very sad tragedy, and I hope and pray it never happens again to anyone.
Tell them about Johnny.
Johnny was an amazing young man, and he made a lot of accomplishments in his life, and he inspired a lot of people, and he helped a lot of people, and we all love him, and we miss him, and we agonize because we tried to understand, and there's no possible way to understand what happened. I pray for all of the people involved. I've forgiven them, and I don't even choose to remember their faces, but I do hope and pray for better days in Lakewood.
Just so you know, the claim is on behalf of the mom, Susan, and the other two, the brother and sister that were watching and sitting there when the whole thing transpired.
Has the Sheriff's Department since taken statements from any of the family members who
They
witnessed?
didn't want our statements.
No,
No,
not
when I tried to
no
give
follow-up.
my statement to the detective, I was shut down and told that he was to ask the questions. And then he asked me how I knew they were police. And I needed to describe what they wore and how do I knew that they had batons and and then he did ask me if I had a question for him, and I said, yes, I would like to know if you have a heart. And, so I just, I have never witnessed anything so horrific, and I don't even like to watch the news, or I've told my children not to report to me, violent things, and never expecting to ever witness this in my own front of my house.
And I'm sorry, you spoke to a detective or one of the deputies?
A detective at the station. I thought I would just share with him what I had just witnessed, and he didn't want to hear it.
Was that done that very day? back again to speak to you
No.
about it?
And my neighbor friend that took the video, she said detectives came and tried to take that from her. And so anyway, I hope that it explains what happened that day and that justice can be served for Johnny.
All right, any further questions, or
Are you able to state which agency John's brother worked for?
we don't, because he's an officer and this has happened in front of their family's house, they don't like to give their identity of their location where they live and who they work for, so that's the only reason he's not here talking. And that's
Okay.
the reason we don't want to disclose that.
Will you, in terms of the video, are you going to be supplying that to the sheriff's department for them to look at as part of their
We have.
investigation? You have,
We have.
provided that video
We have.
to them.
And now that we have it, we wanted to get it out and put it in perspective and have everybody look at it and decide what they think. This is handled properly. Like I said, a non-emergency call for help. So, if you want, we've got some flash drives we'll hand out. Unless there's other questions, and like I said, we'll be staying around. If you have further questions that you have, we can answer those. The family's here. So, all right. Thank you. Again, appreciate you coming out. Really do. Sina, do you have the...